Confidence is one of the most misunderstood qualities of the human experience. We tend to look at people who appear confident, people who speak boldly, move decisively, or stand tall, and assume they were simply born that way, as if confidence is some natural trait that a lucky few inherit and the rest of us spend our lives chasing. But the truth is far more empowering. Confidence is not a gift. It is not a talent. It is not a personality type. Confidence is a result of choices, behaviors, and experiences we repeat. The principle of earned confidence begins with a simple idea: you only truly trust what you've proved to yourself. You can hear 1,000 compliments, you can read every book on self-belief, you can even recite affirmations in the mirror every morning, but none of it transforms you unless your actions align with your words. Because confidence grows from evidence. Evidence that you show up, evidence that you try, evidence that you follow through even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable, and evidence that you are a person who keeps the promises you make to yourself. Think back to any moment in your life when you felt genuinely confident, not fake confidence, not the kind where you force a smile or pretend you know what you're doing. Real confidence, the kind that feels grounded and quiet. What created that feeling? It wasn't magic. It wasn't external validation. It was the memory that you've done something like this before. It was the accumulation of small wins, small steps, small commitments that built a foundation under your feet. Confidence doesn't suddenly appear in the big moments. It is built in the small ones. This is the mistake so many people make. They wait for the big win to believe in themselves. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the recognition, the applause, the breakthrough. But earned confidence doesn't work that way. It starts in the moments no one sees. Waking up early to improve yourself, showing up on the days you feel least motivated, practicing a skill long after the excitement fades, keeping a promise to yourself even when nobody would know if you broke it. It is these tiny repetitions, these almost invisible behaviors, that accumulate into inner certainty. Confidence, before it is revealed externally, must be rehearsed internally. And here's what's remarkable. You don't need to be extraordinary to earn confidence. You just need to be consistent. The human brain is wired to believe what it sees repeatedly. So when you repeatedly demonstrate effort, discipline, ownership, and growth, your mind slowly begins to trust you. It starts to say, yes, this feels real. This feels true. And that truth becomes confidence. Not loud confidence, not arrogant confidence, but the quiet, steady confidence of someone who knows their capabilities because they have tested them. Of course, life will always test that confidence. You will fail. You will fall short. You will have days where your best effort still isn't enough. But here's the advantage of earned confidence. It survives failure. It endures criticism. It withstands doubt. Because it was never based on the illusion of being perfect. It was built on the experience of showing up. And when your confidence comes from evidence, not ego, one loss can't erase it. The person who learns to earn their confidence becomes unshaken, not because they always win, but because they always return. There is a certain liberation that comes with this understanding. When you recognize that confidence is earned, not granted, you no longer need to wait for permission. You stop comparing yourself to others because you understand that confidence is not a competition. It is a personal contract. It's not about being better than anyone else. It's about proving to yourself that you can be better than you were yesterday. The journey of confidence is not upward. It is inward. And perhaps the most important truth in this principle is this: the goal in life is not to feel confident. Feelings fluctuate. Feelings come and go. Feelings are unreliable. The real goal is to become a person you trust. When you trust yourself, confidence becomes a byproduct. When you honor your commitments, confidence becomes a reflection. When you act in alignment with your values, confidence becomes a natural extension of your integrity. Imagine what becomes possible when you see yourself as someone reliable. Imagine waking up and knowing, not hoping, knowing, that you can handle whatever the day brings. Imagine speaking in front of others with clarity because you've done the preparation. Imagine stepping into challenges without fear because you've built resilience through daily habits. Imagine pursuing a goal not because you're sure you'll succeed, but because you trust yourself enough to try. That is earned confidence, and it's available to every one of us, but it requires courage. Not dramatic courage, but the everyday courage to choose discipline over ease, commitment over comfort, and growth over excuses. It requires patience, a willingness to delay the rush of validation in favor of the slow burn of self-belief. And it requires honesty. You must be brutally honest about the standards you set for yourself and whether you're living up to them. Because deep down, you always know when you're holding back. You always know when you're capable of more. And you always know when you're betraying your own potential. Confidence cannot grow in the presence of self-betrayal. It grows only when you honor your own word. There will be days when it feels like nothing is happening, days when the progress feels microscopic, days when the effort feels invisible. But remember, confidence is not built in events, it is built in processes. You may not see the change immediately, but every small act is casting a vote. A vote for the person you want to become. A vote for the identity you're building. A vote for the confidence that awaits you on the other side of effort. And one day, without even noticing, you will start acting differently. You will walk differently. You will speak differently. You will carry yourself differently. Not because someone told you to, but because you earned the right to. Because you became the person who follows through. Because your actions finally aligned with your expectations. Because you proved to yourself over and over again that you can trust your own strength. That is the principle of earned confidence. Simple, powerful, transformative. You don't wait for confidence, you build it. You don't beg for it, you practice it. You don't chase it, you embody it. And when you do, confidence stops being something you seek and becomes something you are. We often imagine confidence as something reserved for the bold, the talented, or the naturally fearless. We tend to look at those who seem unwavering and assume they possess some hidden advantage, some extraordinary ability that the rest of us missed out on. But confidence, real confidence, doesn't begin in extraordinary moments. It begins in the smallest, quietest, most unglamorous decisions we make every single day. The truth is, people don't become confident by achieving huge milestones. They become confident by proving to themselves again and again that EY are capable of taking small steps in the direction of who they want to become. Big accomplishments may inspire us, but small wins sustain us. They build the kind of belief that doesn't crack under pressure, doesn't collapse under doubt, and doesn't disappear when life gets hard. If you look closely at anyone who stands strong in their abilities, you'll notice something surprising. They aren't confident because of the big moments in their life. They're confident because of the discipline they built long before those big moments arrived. Confidence is created in the quiet repetition of tiny habits, showing up early, practicing a skill for just a few minutes a day, making a single healthy choice, keeping one small promise to yourself even when it feels insignificant. These choices don't look powerful at the moment, but that's the deceptive part. Small wins rarely feel meaningful in isolation, yet they are the building blocks of a resilient identity. Every time you do something difficult, even in a small way, you are reinforcing a message within yourself, I can. And that message, repeated often enough, becomes belief. When you consistently accumulate tiny victories, something changes inside you. You begin to trust your effort. You begin to trust your discipline. You begin to trust the identity you're shaping one small step at a time. This is why people who rely only on motivation struggle. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls. But small wins don't depend on how you feel. They depend on your willingness to take a step, even an inch, when your mind is begging you to stop. And every inch forward strengthens you more than you realize. Think about a person who decides to run a marathon. The confidence they feel on race day wasn't built in one giant effort. It wasn't built in the final miles. It wasn't built in a dramatic moment of inspiration. It was built in the countless short runs, the days when they didn't feel like training but still stepped outside. Their confidence was created the first time they ran 1 mile, then 2, then 3. It was built through a series of small decisions that didn't seem impressive to anyone else, but quietly transformed the person making them. Small wins do something extraordinary. They allow you to experience success long before the big success arrives. They provide constant feedback that you're moving in the right direction, even when progress feels slow. And the more you accumulate small wins, the less you fear big challenges. They stop feeling intimidating because you've already proven over and over again that you were capable of moving forward. There's another reason small wins matter so deeply. They counteract the negative stories we tell ourselves. Most people carry doubts about whether they're good enough, disciplined enough, smart enough, strong enough. Those doubts rarely come from reality. They come from a lack of evidence. When you haven't shown yourself that you can follow through, your mind fills the empty space with fear. But when you begin stacking small wins, you replace uncertainty with proof. You create a new narrative based not on wishful thinking, but on consistent action. This is why the smallest actions sometimes produce the biggest transformations. Waking up 10 minutes earlier doesn't seem important. Reading one page of a book doesn't seem like progress. Doing a 2-minute workout feels almost pointless. But those small wins shape your identity. They whisper, I follow through. I keep going. I show up for myself. And identity, not intensity, is the real engine of confidence. The problem is, we often overlook small wins because we're too focused on chasing big ones. We want the dramatic shift, the instant transformation, the overnight success. But life doesn't work that way. Growth doesn't happen in leaps, it happens in steps. The people who transform their lives aren't the ones who make massive changes all at once. They're the ones who commit to small actions and repeat them long enough for the compound effect to take hold. Confidence doesn't grow like a firework, fast, bright, and gone. Confidence grows like a sunrise, slow, steady, and impossible to ignore once it fully arrives. The remarkable thing about small wins is that they don't require talent, luck, or perfect conditions. They only require effort. A tiny bit of effort repeated consistently is more powerful than a burst of effort that quickly fades. Because consistency becomes character. Character becomes identity. And identity becomes confidence. Imagine what happens when you begin collecting small wins every day. You drink a little more water. You read a little more. You improve a skill by 1%. You take care of one small task you've been avoiding. You speak up in one small moment when you normally would have stayed quiet. None of these actions will change your life instantly, but together they begin changing who you are. They strengthen your belief in your ability to improve. They raise the standard you hold yourself to. They build a kind of confidence that can't be shaken because it wasn't built in a day. It was built brick by brick. And then something fascinating happens. You start trusting yourself in bigger situations. You start stepping into opportunities you once thought you weren't ready for. You start handling pressure with more calm. You start viewing failure not as a setback, but as part of the process. You begin to live with a sense of quiet assurance, not because everything is easy, but because you've built your confidence the right way, slowly, intentionally, and authentically. That is the power of small wins. They don't just help you succeed, they help you believe. They reshape your identity from the inside out. They turn doubt into clarity, fear into readiness, and hesitation into momentum. If you want confidence that lasts, don't chase the big moment. Start collecting the small ones. The small win you achieve today might not look impressive, but it is laying the foundation for the person you are becoming. And one day, when you stand in a moment that feels big, you will realize it doesn't intimidate you, because your confidence won't come from hype or hope. It will come from evidence you built one small win at a time. There is a certain kind of confidence that can't be faked. A steadiness that shows up in a person who knows they've done the work. You can hear it in their voice. You can see it in their actions. You can feel it in the way they carry themselves. It's not arrogance. It's not bravado. It's not inflated self-worth. It's competence. And competence is one of the most reliable sources of confidence you will ever build, because competence is earned through effort, through repetition, through mastery, through knowing that you've put in the time long before the moment required you to perform. We live in a world that idolizes confidence, but often overlooks the foundation that makes confidence possible. People want to feel certain, but they don't want to practice. They want to feel strong, but they don't want to train. They want to feel prepared, but they don't want to do the work that preparation demands. Yet true certainty, the kind that holds you steady under pressure, comes only from competence. It comes from the knowledge that you have done something so many times in so many different conditions that your mind and body know what to do, even when you feel nervous, even when you're scared, even when the situation is bigger than anything you've faced before. Competence doesn't happen in bursts. Effort. It happens in the slow, rigorous accumulation of experience. It happens when you repeat a task not until you get it right once, but until you cannot get it wrong. It's built when you choose practice over perfection, effort over ease, and improvement over ego. When you decide that doing it again and again is worth the discomfort, the boredom, and the frustration, because mastery is on the other side of persistence. The beautiful part about competence is that it has nothing to do with natural talent. Natural talent might give you a head start, but competence keeps you in the race. It is the great equalizer. Anyone can become competent at something if they are willing to show up consistently. And the moment you become competent, you begin to feel something powerful, not hope, not luck, but certainty. The certainty that you know what you're doing. The certainty that you've rehearsed enough to handle whatever comes next. The certainty that you're not stepping into the unknown blindly, but prepared. Think about the last time you walked into a situation feeling truly ready. Not just optimistic, ready. You knew you had put in the time, the learning, the trial and error. You had gone through the uncomfortable moments, the confusion, the mistakes that slowly sharpened your understanding. That readiness wasn't an accident. It was competence. And competence creates a kind of confidence that doesn't shout or show off. It's a quiet internal assurance, a calm that sits at the center of your actions. When you know what you're capable of, you stop fearing the moment. You stop doubting every decision. You stop questioning whether you belong. Competence removes the guesswork. It frees your mind to be present instead of panicked. It allows you to adapt, adjust, and respond intelligently because you already understand the foundation of what you're doing. People often think fear disappears when you become confident. It doesn't. Fear may still show up, but competence gives you something that fear cannot touch. The ability to perform even when you're afraid. Fear affects your feelings. Competence affects your actions. When you've trained yourself thoroughly, your actions become stronger than your emotions. You can feel uncertain on the inside, but still execute with precision on the outside. That is the gift of competence. It doesn't remove fear, but it anchors you against it. Competence also shapes how others trust you. You don't gain trust by proclaiming your skills. You gain trust by demonstrating them. People follow those who are reliable, not those who are loud. People respect those who prepare, not those who pretend. When someone sees that you know your craft, truly understand it, they feel safe in your presence. They sense that you've done the work, and their confidence in you mirrors the confidence you have earned in yourself. The most impactful leaders, the most trusted teammates, the most reliable individuals are not the ones who speak the most boldly. They are the ones who have practiced the most consistently. Their certainty doesn't come from personality, it comes from performance. It comes from the hours invested behind the scenes. It comes from the nights spent learning, refining, adjusting, improving. It comes from competence born in private, long before it is admired in public. There is something deeply empowering about competence because it is entirely within your control. You may not control circumstances, timing, or outcomes, but you control your preparation, you control your practice, you control the depth of your understanding. And because you control these things, competence becomes a form of self-respect. Every hour you invest in improving your skill is a statement that says, I take myself seriously. Every repetition is a declaration of commitment. Competence is one of the purest forms of personal integrity because it ensures you are never pretending to be something you haven't earned. But competence does not mean perfection. In fact, competence thrives in the presence of mistakes. It is built from them. Every time you fail, you learn something. Every time you stumble, you refine something. Every time you repeat a task, you sharpen something. Competence is not about never getting it wrong. It's about getting it wrong less and less as your understanding deepens. It's about evolving, not arriving. And here is what is truly exciting. The more competent you become in one area, the more confidence you gain in every area. Competence teaches you how to learn. It teaches you how to adapt. It teaches you how to grow. When you master a skill, you start to believe in your capability, not just to handle that one thing, but to handle anything. Competence builds the mindset of, I can figure this out. And that mindset is one of the most powerful forms of confidence a person can carry. Imagine living with that level of certainty. Imagine walking into challenges without feeling overwhelmed. Imagine pursuing goals without doubting your ability to learn what you need to learn. Imagine facing opportunities with readiness instead of hesitation. Competence makes all of this possible. It gives you a foundation that doesn't crumble under pressure because it was built on practice, not pretense. When you commit to competence, you are committing to a lifelong journey of growth. You are choosing to put in the reps, to embrace repetition, to refine your skills until they become part of you. And when that happens, when you truly know what you're capable of, your confidence is no longer a fragile feeling. It becomes a durable truth, a truth built not on hope, but on evidence, not on image, but on ability, not on luck, but on competence. And that kind of confidence is unshakable. There is a kind of confidence that looks strong on the outside, but collapses the moment something goes wrong. It's the kind of confidence built on appearance, on pretending, on projecting, on hoping no one notices the cracks beneath the surface. But then there is a different kind of confidence altogether, a confidence that doesn't crumble under pressure, a confidence that doesn't vanish when you fail, a confidence that holds steady in the storms of life. This confidence is not loud or flashy, it is earned. And because it is earned, it survives failure. Failure reveals the truth about us in ways success never will. Success can hide our weaknesses. Failure exposes them. Success can make us look stronger than we really are. Failure shows us exactly where we stand. But this is why earned confidence matters so deeply. Because when confidence is built through effort, through discipline, through practice, consistency, it isn't weakened by failure, it is strengthened by it. Most people fear failure not because failure is painful, but because failure threatens their identity. When your confidence is fragile, when it's built on the illusion of being perfect, failure feels like proof that you're not who you pretend to be. But when your confidence is earned, when you've built it through work, repetition, and resilience, failure becomes something entirely different. It becomes feedback, it becomes information. It becomes a test you know you can recover from. A person with earned confidence doesn't fear failure because they know failure is not final. They've failed before and risen. They've been knocked down and stood up. They've experienced setbacks and still moved forward. They carry the memory of every challenge they once thought they couldn't survive, but did. And that memory, that evidence, is what gives them strength. You can't erase the confidence of someone who has proven to themselves that they can come back. The truth is that failure itself is not the enemy. The fear of failure is. Fear keeps you small. Fear convinces you not to try. Fear tells you that one wrong move means you're unworthy, that one mistake means you're not capable. But earned confidence speaks louder. It tells you, I've been here before. I know how to get up. I know how to learn. I know how to rebuild. And that inner voice, grounded in evidence, is more powerful than any fear you will ever feel. People often think confidence comes from winning, but winning alone doesn't teach resilience. Winning doesn't teach perseverance. Winning doesn't teach humility. Winning doesn't teach you what you're made of. Failure does. And when you learn to rise from failure, you build a kind of confidence that winning can't give you. There's a calmness in people who have lived through challenges. It's not that hey, don't feel fear. It's that they don't let fear dictate their next move. They've already lived through difficult moments. They've already seen themselves push through discomfort. They've already learned how to adapt when things go sideways. This is why earned confidence is so powerful. It's rooted in reality, not fantasy. Think of someone who has trained for years in a demanding craft. They've made mistakes. They've had embarrassing moments. They've failed in front of people. They've tried things that didn't work. And because of that, they've learned to navigate failure with grace. The moment something goes wrong, they don't panic, they don't break, they don't question their worth, they simply adjust. They know the path to mastery is filled with failures and they move through them instead of running from them. This kind of confidence does not rely on being perfect. It relies on being persistent. There is a misunderstanding in society that confidence means believing you will always succeed. In reality, true confidence is believing you can survive even when you don't. It's knowing that failure does not define you, but your response to failure does. It's trusting that you are capable of recovering, learning, adapting, and trying again. When you earn confidence, you build a form of resilience that becomes part of who you are. You stop seeing failure as a threat and start seeing it as a teacher. You stop worrying about how you look and start focusing on how you grow. You stop fearing challenges because you trust your ability to face them. And something profound happens when you stop fearing failure. You start playing bigger. You take risks. You step into opportunities. You pursue dreams that once felt out of reach. The fear that once restricted you loses its power because your confidence no longer depends on everything going right. It depends on your ability to grow. When things go wrong, the people who make the greatest impact in the world are not the ones who avoided failure. They are the ones who embraced it. They understood that the road to achievement is messy. They understood that setbacks are part of the process. They understood that confidence is not built in moments of ease, but in moments of struggle. We often think the strong people are the ones who never fall, but the strongest people are the ones who fall, learn, and rise. Every rise adds another layer of confidence. Every recovery adds another layer of trust. Every challenge overcome becomes another chapter of proof that you are capable of more than you once believed. If you've ever wondered why some people remain steady in difficult times, this is why. Their confidence wasn't built on a winning streak, it was built on a recovery streak. They've fallen more times than anyone notices and risen more times than anyone counts. Their confidence wasn't built by avoiding discomfort, but by walking through it. Not by ignoring fear, but by acknowledging fear and moving anyway. And here's the truth that many people never understand. The more you go through, the more confidence you earn. The more you experience, the more grounded you become. The more adversity you face, the less intimidated you are by the next challenge. This doesn't make life easier, but it makes you stronger. It makes you wiser. It makes you more prepared for whatever comes your way. Earned confidence isn't loud. It isn't boastful. It isn't dramatic. It's quiet, steady, grounded. It shows up when everything seems uncertain and whispers, "You've got this. You've been here. You know how to handle this." It's the kind of confidence that doesn't disappear when you fall. It shows up to help you rise. If you want confidence that survives failure, you must build confidence that includes failure. You must be will. To try, to stumble, to learn, to adapt, to grow. You must be willing to embrace the parts of the journey that are uncomfortable. Because confidence born from comfort is temporary. Confidence born from resilience is permanent. And when you finally look back at the path you've traveled, you won't be proud because you never fell. You'll be proud because you rose every single time. We spend so much of our lives chasing the feeling of confidence. We try to look confident, act confident, sound confident. We search for hacks, routines, and tricks to make us feel a certain way. But the problem with feelings is that they are temporary. They rise and fall. They are inconsistent, unpredictable, easily influenced. And when you rely on feelings to guide your life, you build your foundation on something unstable. You end up fragile, dependent on the right mood, the right moment, the right conditions. But confidence, real, lasting confidence, doesn't come from how you feel. It comes from who you are. The true goal is not to feel confident. The goal is to become someone you trust. When you trust yourself, you no longer obsess over whether you feel brave or prepared or fearless. You take action because you know you will show up in the moment. You know you will do your best. You know you can rely on your own word, your own effort, your own integrity. And that kind of self-trust is far more powerful than any temporary emotion. Think about the person in your life you trust the most. Someone you know will be there if you call them. Someone who follows through. Someone who shows up consistently. You don't trust them because they are always in a good mood. You don't trust them because they're always confident. You trust them because of who they are, not how they feel. Now imagine becoming that type of person for yourself. That is the essence of earned confidence. That is what transforms your life. When you trust yourself, you don't need to wait for motivation. You don't negotiate with excuses. You don't hide behind hesitation. You act not because you feel invincible, but because you've built a history of following through even when you didn't want to. Self-trust is built through evidence. Through every small promise you honor, through every commitment you keep, through every difficult moment you rise to meet instead of avoiding. This is why so many people struggle with self-confidence. It's not because they're incapable, it's because deep they know they have broken too many commitments to themselves. They've told themselves they'd start tomorrow but didn't. They've promised themselves consistency but quit at the first obstacle. They've made goals but never built habits. And the subconscious mind remembers. Every broken promise becomes a tiny crack in self-trust. Every undone task becomes a reason to doubt. Every abandoned commitment becomes fuel for insecurity. The problem isn't lack of ability, it's lack of trust in your own word. But here's the good news. Self-trust is rebuildable. It's not permanent or fixed. It's not something you either have or don't have. It's something you earn choice by choice through consistent action. You become someone you trust the same way you become someone others trust, through reliability, honesty, and integrity. This is where the journey of confidence begins. The moment you start keeping small promises to yourself, you begin changing the internal story you live with. You start telling yourself, I can rely on me. And that message grows stronger every time you follow through. It doesn't matter how small the step is. What matters is that the step is real. When you honor your commitments, waking up when you said you would, training when you don't feel like it, staying disciplined when it's inconvenient, you prove something important to yourself, that you are worthy of your own trust. And here's the shift that happens. You stop trying to force confidence. You stop trying to hype yourself up. You stop trying to pretend. You no longer try to trick yourself into feeling powerful. Instead, you quietly become powerful. You don't need to feel confident before you act. You act, and confidence grows naturally from that action. You become the type of person who doesn't wait for the right emotion. You move because your identity pulls you forward, not because your feelings push. Self-trust also changes how you handle uncertainty. When you trust yourself, you stop needing everything to be predictable. You stop needing perfect conditions. You stop needing reassurance. You develop the mindset that says, whatever happens, I'll figure it out. That simple belief that you will figure it out is one of the greatest forms of confidence you will ever experience. It doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees resilience. It protects you from paralysis. It replaces fear with curiosity. It allows you to step into unfamiliar spaces without losing yourself. When you don't trust yourself, uncertainty becomes terrifying. When you do trust yourself, uncertainty becomes an opportunity to grow. This is why the strongest people are not the ones who feel confident all the time. They are the ones who trust themselves even when they feel doubt. They can act courageously, even when their emotions are screaming fear. They can stay steady even when everything around them is unstable, because their foundation is not feelings, it's identity. And identity is far more durable. Becoming someone you trust also changes the way you view your failures. Instead of seeing them as evidence that you're not good enough, you see them as part of your development. You trust yourself to learn. You trust yourself to adapt. You trust yourself to grow. You don't crumble under pressure because you know who you are beneath the pressure. You know that one moment does not define you. You know that mistakes do not break you. And when you trust yourself, you stop comparing yourself to others. You stop trying to imitate their confidence or their style or their achievements. You stop measuring your progress against someone else's timeline. Because you realize your worth isn't determined externally, it's built internally. It comes from who you are becoming, not from how you rank against anyone else. Self-trust frees you. It frees you from the need for approval. It frees you from the fear of judgment. It frees you from the pressure of perfection. It frees you from the insecurity of doubting your own strengths. When you trust yourself, you stop needing the world's validation because you have your own. And here's what's truly powerful. When you become someone you trust, you naturally become someone others trust as well. People can sense reliability. They can sense integrity. They can sense groundedness. They can sense inner strength. And they are drawn to it. Because trust, real trust, originates within before it manifests outward. The journey to becoming someone you trust is not glamorous. It is slow, intentional, disciplined work. It requires consistency. It requires honesty. It requires courage, the courage to face your weaknesses, to admit where you've fallen short, to rebuild the parts of yourself you abandoned. But the reward is extraordinary. You gain a type of confidence that cannot be shaken by circumstances, criticism, failure, or fear. You don't just look confident. You don't just sound confident. You are confident because you trust yourself. That is the goal. Not the feeling, the becoming, not the mood, the identity, not the temporary rush, the permanent truth, the truth that says, I am someone I can rely on. And once you become that person, confidence is no longer something you seek, it becomes something you live.